Welcome, empowered healer. You've landed here because something within you knows it's time to listen more deeply. I'm Songbird Grandmother, and this is the Empowered Healer Podcast, a sacred space for women who walk between worlds, honor the wisdom of their ancestors, and are here to lead with spirit. Today's episode is called When the Soul Speaks, Listening at the Crossroads. This is for the moments when the outer world feels noisy, the inner world feels unsure, and yet something is calling you into truth. We'll explore how to recognize the crossroads when it appears, why these thresholds are sacred initiations, and what to do when you're unsure which way to go. Stay through the end for a soul invocation and a personal invitation to take your next step with clarity. Let's begin. So, when you're at the crossroads, it means that you have options ahead of you. And I think that's one of the biggest things to remember when you are at the crossroads is that you have options. It's not a dead end. Life is never a dead end until you actually die. And even then, it's the end of one life into another life because your spirit is endless. So today we're going to talk about the crossroads. And most people find me when they're at the crossroads. That's when your spirit and your physical walk merge, and you're usually looking for signs. You're looking for direction, guidance, clarity. You're being initiated into the next step. But sometimes there's this long transitional hallway between one world into the new world. So today we're going to dive deep into what is the crossroads. And here are 3 signs you're at a soul crossroads. So when a woman shows up for a private session with me, she's often not confused. She's being summoned. And the soul speaks through disruption, resistance, and restlessness. And when you're at the crossroads, it is a very uncomfortable place. And here are some signs that you're standing at a sacred crossroads. The first thing is you feel emotionally exhausted by what once worked. The things that you used to do, the strategies, habits, spiritual tools that used to hold you no longer fit, and it can be very disruptive. It's not a failure, but it's leading you into something more transformative, more deep. So a lot of people start off in the spiritual new age with crystals and herbs and tools, the evil eye, all the good stuff, right? And you start learning the basics. But when you become deeper, when you're ready to go deeper, when your soul is ready to fly, you will notice that those things no longer appeal to you. Sometimes they even break, or you're just not interested. It may feel like, I was really into manifestation and everything was coming my way, and then suddenly it doesn't work. And this doesn't mean that you're not doing something right, especially if you've been doing it, you've been having results. It means that there's a transformation. So remember that if you're being pulled into new directions, old directions will fade. The second thing is that your synchronicities will increase, but so does your self-doubt. So you may be seeing all them numbers and signs and dreams and everything that comes from the spiritual world that is confirming that you are right where you need to be. But then the initiation is, are you going to trust the signs, or are you going to linger and stew in self-doubt, also known as fear? Because anytime you're going through a sacred transformation or a crossroads, most definitely the test is overcoming your ego, your self-doubt, your self-sabotage, everything that you have used in the past to stop you from your spiritual power will now come up. And the ironic thing is that you will have a lot of spiritual nudges, a lot of spiritual confirmations as you're going through this. And it can be quite confusing, to say the least. And this is where a lot of my clients come and they say, I don't know which way to go. You know, my dreams are saying this, the signs are saying this, but wow, my self-doubt is going through the roof. What do I do? Am I going to follow spirit or am I going to follow self? Am I going to follow ego? And unfortunately, a lot of people just drop off at that point. Even if like the spirit world dropped a huge flashing sign, they will still have that huge flashing self-doubt. And that's why it's not an easy path. The spiritual path is never easy because of these initiations. Because every time you overcome ego, pride, hubris, self-doubt, self-sabotage, karma, you are initiating yourself into higher realms of consciousness. And you have to be ready for them. The next sign is you're craving sacred clarity, not just information. In this time and age, especially with these 30-second videos, it's easy to just go from one clip to the next clip to the next clip, and you're just like absorbing information, and one thing says this and the next thing says that, and you're just in confusion land. But in the beginning, it's like, wow, I've never heard this before. This is so interesting. Whoa, da, 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 da. But there'll come a point when you come to the crossroads where it's no longer interesting. You don't want more information. You don't want more so-called teachings. You want ceremony. You want a path. You want to know something deeper. And that's when the soul is speaking. That's when the soul is calling you to go deeper. And many times that's when I appear on your path and we go deep, because you are not looking for the superficial. When you're ready to go deeper, your spirit and your soul will sing in a different melody. Your spirit will lead you to what your soul is longing for. And these are not red flags, they're invitations. And the question will become, will you pause long enough to listen? Will you follow the signs and synchronicities, or will you ignore them and dive into endless chaos and confusion? So right now, I invite you to take a breath, to close your eyes, and to bring your awareness to the place where two paths meet. Feel it. This is your sacred threshold. Taking deep, conscious breaths, connecting to the deepest part of yourself. You're going to really connect to your heart. And in this moment of breath and connection, ask yourself, what truth have I been avoiding? What truth have I been avoiding? And what path is ready to open if I would just say yes? What path is ready to open if I would just say yes? Breathe into that space. and bring it into your awareness. And as you do that, ask your spirit to lead you to the next step, to confirm that next step, and have the courage to follow that next step. And if you want to journey deeper into this full moon, this week's Meditation Monday, is going to go deeper into the crossroads. And I have a special crossroads guided meditation that I'm offering to help you go in and through the crossroads. There's a lot of discussion about the spiritual awakening. And one thing I invite you to think about is when you go through a spiritual awakening, what is the end goal? Why? Why have you gone through this spiritual awakening? Because during a spiritual awakening, it's a very painful process. It's a snake shedding its skin. It's your whole entire life collapsing into a new life. And it could involve the loss of a partner, the loss of a job, the loss of family. It involves a lot of loss. There could have been a death in some way, shape, and form. There's usually a financial loss. There's usually a spiritual loss. There's a lot of grief that comes up to the surface that can lead you in and through spiritual powers and initiations that will lead you from one door to the next. And they're so radical that at the end of the journey, you don't even recognize who you were before the journey and who you are after the journey. And so when you're at a spiritual crossroads, you are at a spiritual death. You are at a spiritual initiation. You are in a place where what you used to love, you no longer love. What you used to crave, you no longer crave. What used to fill you mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, psychologically, no longer fills you. And sometimes, if it's deep enough, if there's a lot of unresolved trauma, if there is obsession, lust, powerlessness, victimhood, there is spiritual psychosis. There is a spiritual battle happening in its most severe cases, and that's what we call a psychotic break in psychology, because it's hitting all the bodies of time and space. It's no longer just spiritual, but it's physical, emotional, mental, psychological, and it permeates into the soul. And it takes a lot of time, money, energy to come back. You know, some people have to get committed into facilities because it's so deep. And one thing that I think people really negate is how powerful therapy can be. Coming from a psychology background, I believe in the power of therapy with the right therapist, especially if you're going through something like this, you want to seek out trauma therapy with somebody that you can really lay down the truth with. And not all psychologists, I would say most psychologists are not trained in the spiritual. So you need a spiritual guide, but you also need someone to help you get into stability. And that's what therapy can do for people. They go hand in hand, especially if you're going through a huge spiritual crisis. And you will know you're going through a huge spiritual crisis because it will completely burn your house down. It's not just a little spiritual awakening. It is a big old burning of your house, which is different than just a crossroads. A crossroads is you may have to cross the forest. It will get a little scary, but it's not going to completely burn your house down. And I think that's a very powerful distinction in the spiritual communities is what do we do with clients and loved ones who are in the burning of a house, who are standing at not only an initiation, but a complete meltdown, a complete meltdown. And how do we find the proper help and resources? Because at that point, you can't just have a spiritual guide. You have to have the mental support, the spiritual support, the physical support, and you have to be in a place of safety. See, in psychology, the one thing is if somebody is hurting themselves or threatening to hurt others, you have to report that. You can't let that go unnoticed. You can't let that go undocumented. You have to reach out and you have to let that person know that they have to reach out. And a lot of times people are very reluctant to go see a psychologist or a therapist because of the stigma behind it and because they'd rather have it as a spiritual attack versus something that's going on within them. And that's the problem because trauma opens doorways that otherwise shouldn't be opened. And it leaves people susceptible to ailments if unresolved. And the unfortunate part of this is that when spirituality is superficial and artificial, there are very few places and spaces for this type of healing. Because when we go into the spiritual new age, it's very much against modern therapy. When in fact, a lot of times modern therapy is going hand in hand with the spiritual. And without it, the person cannot fly into the next destination. So if you're standing in the middle of a crossroads and you have no direction and the house is starting to burn, this is your message to get help, to reach out, and to not be afraid. Not be afraid. Do not fear help. When you have a lot of trauma, the last thing that feels safe is help. But if you or someone you know is going through a deep psychological, spiritual battle, the only option is to reach across and get help. Do not let your house burn down. And I feel like that's a very deep message for someone or someone's out there. Don't be afraid for help. And if you want to go deeper into the crossroads and cross this very powerful threshold, then be sure to check out my YouTube channel and get notified when the meditation will drop, if it hasn't already dropped. And also join me for Meditation Monday, where we'll go in and through different guided meditations to help you deepen your spiritual walk and spiritual power. And just to clarify, this crossroads that everyone is going through is a collective crossroads. In some way, shape, and form, everyone at this juncture in time will be crossing their own crossroads. And be gentle, be kind, be fierce, be loving, and know that whatever way your spirit sends you, guides you, you are here because this is a sacred time and a sacred space for you and your soul to leave something for the next 7 generations. And may it be good, may it be beautiful, and may it nourish those who come after. So thank you so much for joining me today. I invite you, if you're ready and you want to go beyond the superficial, you want to really fly into this next crossroads, and you are feeling the call to go deeper into session and ceremony, to connect to your spirit guides, your ancestors, and receive a message, then I invite you to check out my services and ceremonies, to connect with me through my newsletter and social medias, and keep listening, keep coming back, and let's connect more and more. Until we meet again, I wish you nothing but the best on your journey into the crossroads. May you walk in beauty. Many blessings. Aho.